Vanuatu several years ago. And besides pointing out that lots of people in Vanuatu live a degrowth lifestyle, even though they don't know what degrowth is, the emphasis on housing exposes that the traditional ways of building, as well as the traditional materials of building, meant that their housing tended to withstand Cyclone Pam in impressive ways, as against those housing in the towns where people have been encouraged to use more modern materials. Also, after Cyclone Pam and the devastation that it wrought, the communal and collective ways that people in Ni Vanuatu build their housing showed that they could actually rehabilitate their housing much quicker after Cyclone Pam than the foreign aid professionals who came in. Another architect, Chitra Vishwan, has written this chapter on Bangalore, or now called Bengaluru in South India. This particular city has undergone a lot of erosion of the local landscape. Hills have been literally flattened in order to bring in materials to build the city. And Chitra is one of several architects in a particular studio who are bringing together techniques and designs for city building which draws on the materials that can be found in the city itself. So for instance, building a basement and digging out all the material from the basement to use for the bricks themselves, and also using landfill materials, reusing materials for the housing. There's a chapter on two couples, one in Wales and another in Germany, who have endeavoured to establish very simple, renewable kind of housing, and they reflect on the different kinds of problems that they had with planners and building regulations. And they also record how they managed to build their buildings with a lot of collaboration with both friends as well as certain professionals. So I'll leave the Hans Widmer chapter to you, Francois, because Francois helped Hans write that chapter. There's a chapter on design, planning for smaller dwellings, because it's recognised that if we're going to live in very small ways, and also if we're living in very shared ways, you need to have kind of special design that is both very effective and also promotes conviviality. And the way that this chapter is structured is really nice, because it looks at the whole interior of homes and some of the best principles to use when you've got small dwellings. It looks at how smaller dwellings can be best pulled together in apartment buildings and in precincts so that there's more conviviality and social spaces such as the one that we're in tonight. I've spoken about the urbanisation, decentralisation section. And finally, this section on anti-capitalist values and relations, we've only given two very kind of like tiny examples here. One is the Mietshäuser Syndicate, which you might know from Germany, because it's a very famous example of how hundreds of collective housing is being collectively owned by an umbrella organisation which makes sure that these houses are kept out of the market and therefore kept more affordable for those people who live in them. And finally, I did a chapter that argues that I lived for about a decade in a couple of eco-collaborative living projects, and so I draw on those experiences and I argue that the more collectively sufficient eco-collaborative living can be, then the more relatively autonomous that you can be, and the greater efficiencies that you can make in terms of shared living. So, I've got a set of useful links, but I think Francois has kind of got the same one at the end of his PowerPoint. And the only last thing that I would like to say is that I'm now working with Fern Edwards on a Food for Degrowth collection, and any of you that are involved in food kind of projects, it'd be really interesting to talk to you about those.
Try to speak from here. Okay, it's about horizontal governance. I want like some horizontality. No, that is not. I like to be standing up. Like. So thank you so much, Anitra. Thank you so much for to be here. I'm going to just go through. I mean, this was in 2001, one of the first special issue I was involved in that. So just to say that on Degrowth, this was like a walk that I walked during 1 year to promote the idea of Degrowth in France, in the south of France. It finished with a demonstration of 500 people. It was on 2004. And okay, I had yeah, the idea was to spread the idea, the debate on degrowth and so on, not just in small circles, but in the larger society, let's say. It worked really well. Many groups started. What I didn't finish my phrase before, I made the travel with a donkey, so it was kind of got famous for that. And I also was involved with these conferences, but okay, it was mentioned before. And this is Camp des Crèches. So the idea really of Camp des Crèches is to really put in practice degrowth. And it's not just about single technologies, no? About there are solar panels, there are different things, but it's really about trying to live degrowth and manage to reduce really preventively all the problems. Like, for example, we really try not to put anything in the water so that we don't even need to have treatment of the water. We can directly use it for watering and so on. So it's just an example there. Okay, so this is the train tour that we're doing, just that you see also the map, like we're in Brno. Yeah, I wanted to start with to make a little bit of advertising to you, because really it would be fantastic if you try to get this big house. You know, it can make you much more happy if you participate in the competition with everybody, because yeah, I mean, it can really be great. Okay, it will be a big competition with lots of people, but it will make you happy. Your husband or your wife will be happy, and so on. Okay, supposedly it will also be very ecological, it will solve all the problems, and we create economic growth. You know, if we do all this, and there will be job for everybody. So just to say that there is this growth narrative which is really strong, and which is very convincing, which moves people, no, to this dream that we'll have like a big house. And I want to say, okay, the result of after all these years is not exactly what was promised. I mean, I don't know if you noticed. There are lots of people that don't have houses. And, I'm not going to go very deep into that because you know it already, all the problems. But I want to, I'm not going to go into growth also, but I want to go in the specification of what happens with growth in housing. Really, it's a kind of, it's many dimensions that I put together on that. It's really a system that is based simply on the idea of growth of capital. That the idea is that the more we build, the more we make money with that, the best it is. It acts on many dimensions at the same time, that in a quite coherent way, thanks to this capitalism. Well, one of it, for example, it really works a lot on the idea of having access to natural resources like quarries. You need a lot of materials to make houses, or you need land also, available land to. So it needs also fast transportation is really good, because then people can build further and further away from the city. You know, so we need highways, we need different types of fast transport modes. We need a cement industry, building industry. We need adverts to make you believe that, okay, wow, if I get a swimming pool, if I get a big loan, then I'll be more happy. We need also bad quality housing, because if people have already what they need, why would you need actually to build more? You need also to demolish a lot of housing that exists already, that are, you know, that would otherwise wouldn't need to be built. You need a good inequality also, a good frustration, so that you see, oh shit, the neighbor, he has a bigger house than me. He has the swimming pool is like 2 meters higher, no, larger, sorry, or deeper. You need also, well, cheap labor is good also. If you have some good laws that don't annoy you too much with the ecological problems and so on, that's also good. And you also need, finally, a good banking system that enables to speculate and make lots of money with housing. And all these things, well, create an incentive for growth. And it's very, well, it's good. The problem is that there is big problems with this. And when we try to do an alternative, there's still the other dimensions that create problems. I mean, and this is what happens. So many urbanistic movements, and also many people that try to do alternatives have some come against the wall a little bit, and this is against the system now. Well, there have been lots of ideas of, oh yeah, we should do, for example, building more ecologically or something like this. And then you see that, yeah, but we did more ecologically, but we build always bigger house. Okay. Or we try to, for example, work more on the compact cities and so on. But again, in the context of growth. Well, this failed. No? There was like a movement which was called the new urbanism on the slow growth, you know, that growth in it. Well, it doesn't make a difference, it seems. The idea of like slow mode of transport, or we're going to do slow cities is good, but then, it creates gentrification. I'm not going to go through all the examples, but really well, the worst being certainly smart cities, which from the idea of reducing material and energy use end up with a crazy project of global urbanization, basically. So, yeah. Okay, okay, this was the growth narrative, okay? But there is more and more people that realize that there is a problem. And the problem is in front of this, there is a tendency of people saying, okay, there are so many problems, I'm going to just close myself in my house or in my country. Also, there is another narrative which is also problematic, which is the narrative of closure, of we're going to close ourselves to defend our lifestyle and not change anything. And that is why there the narrative of growth is quite, narrative of degrowth is quite important. We really need something else. The context is really important, in which context we are, and to have the context of degrowth would change very much. For example, in urbanism, I think we really need to talk of degrowth urbanism. It implies really urban degrowth, that the reduction, I'm not going to go through what Anitra described. I mean, she described all the aspects of housing for degrowth, and this is really important. And so what would be these conditions, this new context with degrowth in housing? Well, for instance, slow transport, open localism, the adverts to have really campaigns against adverts, on, well, laws maybe against them also, durable quality housing, renovation. I'm not talking of renoviction, like, you know, to renovate to then get rid of people, but really renovation made by the people and for the people. More equalitarian housing within diversity. It's not that everybody needs to live in the same thing. Support of do-it-yourself, limits to the size, work sharing, on really important, the right for housing. We need eco-building, we need land protection, we need also to go to see different type of relations, not only money relation, all this. But all this together and interlinked, that is the very important aspect of that. And to interlink, we have to think of what would be the pathway. And it involves some action from the bottom up linked to actions at different levels. That's the difficulty. From the fight to the right for housing, we also need to better allocation of housing, voluntary simplicity in housing, limits to advertising, house sharing, refurbishment, small eco-building, but also limiting permits to build big, self-employment, but also work sharing, less money borrowing, but also against the right of banks to create money, which is a very important right that governments continue to give to banks. And this is basically the story of the book. And from that, I want to tell now really what would be the story. What would be a story, because actually all these alternatives, we have them already. It's already existing. Many people are doing things. And with Anitra, we have been around. Anitra has visited many projects. I have also visited quite a few. And we have seen many people that live in simple houses, that live now already in simple houses. It can be in the countryside, it can be in the city. And this is in Cannes-des-Crèches. Many people try to live simply, and they have a very positive effect of requiring very little resources and letting others having access to housing also. It's like they live simply to let the other live, no? There are other people doing house sharing. You can see the shoes, which is like I would say, a symbol of house sharing, of flat sharing. Also in Brno, also there is a nice entrance at Willems on Eva's place, like with shoes. It's, I think, no, it's just to say that house sharing is really another way to really reduce the amount of space we use per person on use incredibly the houses that exist already. On the left side, we do house sharing in the train. That's something else. This is the night train, and with Anitra in the night train. It's also a very small space with 6 people, and quite efficient, and very, very friendly, very convivial. Yeah, the problem is that